I've been thinking recently about the storylines in the main series of Mario games. Now, story isn't a term that you'd usually associate with Super Mario. After all, the tale of Princess Peach being captured by the evil King Bowser and the daring rescue made by the plumber Mario has become a ridiculously repetitive cliché after 26 years. That said, I've come to a rather interesting conclusion, that the main series of Super Mario games, at least in the 3D era, do have detailed, more complicated storylines than we think, just not in the traditional sense. What do I mean by this? Well, first off, it's important to address the captured princess cliché. To me, this isn't the storyline, it's simply the context for an adventure. You've got an intro cutscene and an ending cutscene, but that's really about it. Not what I'd call a full-blown story. So what am I on about then? One of the things I love most about the Mario series is the environments. There's such a great variety of clever and unique worlds. This is where I'd argue Super Mario achieves the bulk of its storytelling. The main characters in this tale are not Mario, Peach and Bowser, but instead the actual physical levels the player explores, and any characters that appear within them. Many of the worlds in a Mario game are filled with subtle details that can tell a story. In my opinion, the ultimate exemplar of this is Super Mario 64, for the Nintendo 64. I'm going to use the first 3 worlds of the game as examples of exactly what I'm talking about. First off, let's talk about Bob-omb Battlefield, the first area players encounter in Super Mario 64. Here, the player steps into a world in the midst of civil war between the black Bob-ombs and the pink Bob-omb buddies, the latter of which are Mario's allies in this conflict. To win the war, the player must collect all the power stars which are being held by their enemies, and the first of these is held by Big Bob-omb, a dictator who loves battles and explosions. Interestingly, he looks down on and acts patronizingly towards anyone who is of a lower class, and scoffs at the notion of Mario being able to throw him from his royal turf. So basically, Bob-omb Battlefield's tale is about a conflict spurred on by an imperialist dictator, a civil war between 2 very similar factions, with one side wishing for peace, and the other longing for conquest. We also learn that Bowser played a large role in both beginning and perpetuating the conflict, giving the black Bob-ombs the power stars. While I wouldn't say this story is told or developed brilliantly, it is definitely something that I'd classify as a story, and one with potential no less. Another world from Super Mario 64 with an interesting tale is Whomp's Fortress. In this level, the Whomp King and his subjects have decided to rebel against Princess Peach by joining up with Bowser. This is due to the fact that even though the Whomps do all the manual labour, they build houses and castles, they pave roads, etc., for the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom, his people get no respect from anyone. Whomp's Fortress conveys the struggle of the kingdom's servant class to be recognised and respected as equals. Princess Peach is actually the villain in the eyes of the Whomp King, and Bowser represents a chance to fight back and attain a higher position in the New World Order. In my opinion, this is one of the best stories in the Mario games, as it gives us a tiny bit of insight into the darker side of the Mushroom Kingdom. The third world the player encounters in Super Mario 64 is Jolly Roger Bay. Now this area is very different to the previous 2. The level is based predominantly in the water, it is much smaller and more confined, there is no boss enemy, and its story is much simpler than the other 2. The player is exploring a cave that was once used by pirates to store their ill-gotten gains. Now their ship lies sunk at the bottom of the ocean, home to a monstrous eel creature. Exactly where the pirates went and how this happened is left to the player's imagination, although we do later find out that the ship was carrying a dangerously toxic cargo, hinting at a rather dark fate. Much like Bob-omb Battlefield, this level makes progress in stages. First the player must plunder the ship, take its power star, and raise it once more from the depths. Next they must steal a power star that is stuck to the tail of the large eel that was living in the ship. Then they must proceed further into the cavern, and steal a third power star from the booby-trapped pirate's den. It's not an amazing tale, but it is a story told almost exclusively through the design of the environment and use of level progression. It includes just enough content to pique your interest, craft a basic narrative, and hint at a more detailed context, but leaves the finer details up to the player's imagination. Naturally, there are many other examples of worlds which tell their own stories in Super Mario 64, such as the abandoned, flooded town of Wet Dry World, Bowser's industrial base in Dire Dire Docks, or the ghostly Boo which holds a child's toy as the entrance to Big Boo's haunt. But I think these examples should have given you some idea at what I'm getting at. The Mario games may not tell great stories, and arguably don't even need to tell one, but they do have a story, and a much deeper one than I originally thought. Considering this, I believe it would be interesting to see a slightly more story-heavy Mario game, even more so than Mario Galaxy. Something which gives the Mushroom Kingdom just a bit more context and narrative depth, outside of the RPG games, could be very interesting to see, so long as it didn't interfere with gameplay or progression. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching guys, and see you later.